Alright everybody, been waiting a while to make this video for you. Had the perfect opportunity. I got this generator off of a friend. We traded a piece of equipment with each other for my piece of equipment. And this is the day before the big supposed not going to be snowstorm coming in the middle of January of 2019. And I'm going to have an opportunity to show you why you want to put the fuel stabilizers such as Stabil or Seafoam, and there are a few others out there, but those are the two I use and I really like, especially the Stabil. If you notice, carburetor is missing. Fuel in the tank smells great, so I know the fuel in the tank's fine. But what happened was, and I'm going to take it down and let you see it, this is the carburetor. Alright. This area right here that's got this strange dome shape right here. And all the new stuff, you will tell it I've taken it off right now, but it's got this little piece of metal. It's this guy right here. You see him? He's got a little needle right here. He is actually a fuel shutoff for emergencies, like, you know, when you jump off the mower stuff, that actually shuts down and stops all the fuel flow really through the main jet, which in this one, you can see it right here. This is the main jet where it's going to go back up into the carburetor. It comes in, loops around, and goes back out. You're not going to be able to see the seat in there, but you'll see the seat. It literally goes in there with an angle and plunges it. So what I got to do, I'm going to pull this down real quick and then we'll pick back up with the video. I got to pull this bowl off. Everything's going to have to be cleaned. I suspect when I get in there with what I smelt in that gas, I'm going to find shellac, and I want you to see shellac. I'm hoping I'm going to find shellac in it. This is a good case of it because I just don't normally let my machines get like this. The guy did run Stabil in it, but I don't think he ran it into the carburetor. So let me get at it and we'll get back on here in a minute and I'll show you what's going on. Okay, so I've gotten into it and I found exactly what I had expected to find. If I can get it to focus enough. This guy right here, what he does in this particular carburetor is he screws in this port, and what his function is to control how much fuel goes up into this main jet, okay? And he's covered in shellac. I mean, you can see I'm scraping it off. Let me see if I can get it close to you to see it. Maybe it'll focus for you. Yeah, there you go. See how it's shiny there and it's crusty there? Okay? Well, this is what happens. Also, if you look down in this bowl here, all these passages in here, because this is where that main jet comes up, and he sits down there in the very, very bottom of that hole. There you go, I got him. He sits down in that very bottom of that hole. You see all that gritty stuff? You see how this yellowish looking stuff is? Alright, that is actually shellac. I'm going to show you here in just a second. Notice where I took the screwdriver and scrape that stuff off right there down the bare metal, right in here. Okay, all of this has got to get cleaned. This main jet inside of it's got to get cleaned. I got to pull down and see if there's any other little jets. Sometimes there's little idle jets in there. All right. So, but this is what why I'm making this video and why I was telling you so much about fuel stabilizers. Let's see here. I've got one of the cans. Here it is. Seafoam. Okay, that's good stuff. The other one, I'll have to walk to my other shop. It's called Stabil. I've used that ever since I was a kid when me and my father were working on these little engines for people. I can attest to its worth. I have put gas in a gas can, not cranked the machine for 2 years because I drain out, make sure it runs down in the carburetor like I'm telling you. Drains out and make sure that carburetor's got that Stabil in it. And I can come back in 2 weeks or 2 years and I can crank that joker up. This is Stabilization. Okay. You can buy it at Walmart. You can buy it at any parts store. I have seen it every now and then at service stations and convenience stores. Not very expensive. That's can of seafoam. I think Walmart sells it for $6.86 a can. That can will treat 20 gallons of fuel. That can of Stabilization I showed you, I think I gave 15 for it. They'll treat 320 gallons worth of fuel. I've had that one for 2 years now, if that tells you how long this stuff lasts. But worth its weight in gold, because if you don't have the knowledge to pull one of these down, and please don't try it just because I showed you on this video. Not all of them are the same. Every one of them is different. You kind of have to understand them to be able to pull them down. But if you don't understand it, I mean, you look at right here. Look at the shellac between this O-ring and there we go. You can see where I scraped some off right there. Oh, that's got to come off. You would have to take this to a repair shop. I mean, I guess the average guys are somewhere around 100, 150 an hour now. I've heard some 70. That's assuming you don't need any parts, like if that needle's messed up real bad and it's got to be replaced. So $15 versus $150, you know, it doesn't take long for you to figure out what it's worth, what it's worth. Now, let me show you how to use it. There is a way to use it. Most machines now, like this guy right here, you see he's got a shutoff valve right here. All right. Mix it in your fuel tank at the rate that the bottle tells you to use. Cut that fuel shutoff off. Run the machine till it's dry. Run it till it's completely dry and cuts off. Then turn it back on. Give it about 3 minutes. Crank it back up. Shut that fuel nozzle off one more time and run it dry again. Why 2 times, you ask? The idea is, I would like to let that machine run 15 minutes and get it through the entire system. That's very, very important. It's got to get through that entire system, including down in that carburetor, because if there's any gas left over in that carburetor, it will shellac in less than 3 months, which a winter time lasts longer than that. So what I have found is I will put it in, shake the tank, mix it, shut it off, let the gas run out, then run gas in again. That way I know the Stabilization gas has gotten into that gas and it's going to work out. If you do that, I can guarantee you with 98.9% certainty, I will leave about a 1.1% in there for error, that when you go out next year and crank that thing, she'll fire right up just like she fired up this year. So, I hope that answers your question on Stabilization. All right, now I've got everything cleaned. Notice how much different that looked. Let's see if it'll focus for me. We'll try and focus it for you. Hold on. There we go. See how much cleaner that is now? Okay. Remember this? Look at it now. You don't see any of that shellac stuff on it. Same thing with the float. And if we look down into the bowl, we got in the bowl about as clean as we're going to get. We're not going to get all that yellow out. What we're more concerned is anything that's going to be flaky or gritty. It only takes something less than the size of a particle of sand to stop that jet up right there, and it gets nearer as you get in here. And then, if I can find it, if you look, there it is. If you look, and I'll put a pointer on it, a little bitty circle right in this area right here. That's part of the jet where it has to suck everything up. If that gives you an idea of how just a small piece of trash in that carburetor causes a problem, and that's what the shellac does, which comes from fuel setting too long. When the fuel goes bad, it has a very distinctive smell. It doesn't have that tingy smell. It's got a real dull, pungent smell to it. Not like a knock you on your feet smell, but if you ever smelled it, you'll know what it is when it happens. So now we'll put all this back together, and then we're going to crank her up to see what she does. So far, I've got about 30 minutes worth of downtime because of this particular problem. That, 2 minutes worth of effort would have solved it. So, here we go. Okay. Carburetor's all back together now. Getting ready to mount everything back up into the machine. I'm going to try and do as much of this with my hand as I can, so that you can see what it is I'm doing. This is that fuel shutoff I told you about. See the little needle and everything? It's going to go down underneath the bowl here. You place that. Let's see here. Alright, that's back in there. Kind of hard doing this just one-handed when you're trying to hold the phone and show people what's going on. Again, I'm not going to encourage you to do this yourself. I've been doing this all my life, and I also have a couple mechanic friends that I can fall back on if I get in over my head a little bit. So again, do not take this as me recommending you to attempt to do this, but if you have the inkling and you have some know-how, well then by all means, I hope I'm helping you. Alright, so I got him back in there. I can't emphasize, I see this a lot when I work on other people's mowers and stuff, where they've tried to go and do it themselves, and they try to make do with the tools that they have. When messing with a carburetor, do not do that. Don't. Bad idea, horrible idea. If you use the wrong screw and round something out, you may or may not be able to get that screw. The only thing you will be left to do is buy an entire carburetor. I have bought them for as cheap as $50 for a machine, and I have paid as much as $400 for a carburetor for a machine. So I can't emphasize to you enough how important it is to understand that they are very delicate, and they need to be treated as such, because if they're not, you're going to end up costing yourself a lot more money in the long run. Okay, I'm back. I had to put some bolts in here, and it was going to take two hands, and there was just no way I was going to do this with one hand and attempt to explain it to you at the same time. It won't go happen. I saw that, so I said, well, let me just do it that way. Okay, so I got him lined up. Basically what I'm trying to do right now, if you can see it, is put the bolts back in so that the carburetor goes in. So what will happen once I get through with that is this choke cable, after I get him all, that's another thing, they'll get all bent, wipey-doodled, and that's one of my terms, that's not an official term. They'll get bent all wipey-doodled, and so I have to hook up all the chokage leakage there. This right here is the throttle linkage. Now, do not, under any circumstances, bend your throttle linkage, because it's always attached to the governor of the engine. You bend that, you change the whole mechanics of how this works. I mean, just even the slightest little bend. I've gotten machines in, I've even had my own where I did it and didn't realize it, where I bend this or bend that to the point I can't even tell I bent it, and the thing will just sit there, blah, 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 just sit there and loop, you know. So, you know, make sure. And another thing is, most of them, that little bitty spring right there, I don't know if you could see it, but that little bitty spring and that thin wire is very important. It keeps everything stabilized so it don't sit there and lope. It's got to go back. So I'm going to finish putting this back on, and we're going to fire it up here in a minute and see what she does. Alrighty, we're going to share victory or defeat together on this. So I'm going to turn my fuel on. And I'm going to have to work the choke manually because I'm going to keep the air filter cover off until I get it started. Let's see what she does. Fuel, so I'm gonna have to figure that out, and we'll see what happens. Okay, last one was an epic fail. I think we found the problem. We'll fire it up here in a second. I'm going over everything and making sure that all my linkage is in fact in place like it should be. You know, make sure that nothing's going to crack up or anything. Alright, fuel's on. We'll give it a minute. Let's see what happens. Alright, that was to get the fuel in the bowl. Let's see if she'll fire up now. Alright, we got a little problem right here. Alrighty. Got it running. Got the mag grill right there running for a test. I tested all of the plugs, make sure I got the voltage it was supposed to be and everything before I hook it up to the house. So the first failure was due to the fact that I did not clean that plunger that I had showed you. It had shellacked up as well, so it wouldn't work. So the fuel was getting in the bowl, but it was not getting up into the carburetor. The other issue was the float wasn't working correctly, and that was a fuel bypass kicking in to take pressure off the fuel system. So I got that straight. But now I got everything back on it. Everything's back together. It's been running stable like that now for 15 minutes. I scored that generator for $900. Yeah. I think the gentleman told me that the person he got it from only used it maybe once or twice. That's a 13,000 watt generator. They're normally about $3,500, $4,000. I think I did good for about an hour and a half worth of work to get it working. How about you? So now you've kind of seen as best as I could do from start to finish why you want to use fuel stabilizer, what happens if you don't, and now you've also kind of got a sense of what it takes to get the problem fixed when you don't do it. I did that not to show you how to repair a carburetor, but for you to see what it actually takes to fix it for something that is simple and cheap to do. So I hope you learned a lot from this video. You know, that's the only reason I take the time to make these things, is to share my knowledge with you and make your life easier and simpler. And I hope you enjoyed it. Come back again. See you later.